Hello there. Welcome back to the booth here in Vancouver. Marshall Sutcliffe. I've got Ian Duke with me for this last round of draft. We've got one more to go, and we've got a really cool matchup lined up for you down in the feature match area. We're going to tell you about it when we get there, but for now, let's head down to the feature match area for round 11 here from Pro Tour Magic Origins. Hello and welcome to coverage of Pro Tour Magic Origins. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Ian Duke, a member of R&D.
That's right.
And we are ready to go for round 11 here. This is the last round of Limited. And we've got Jesse Hampton. You take a look at Jesse. He comes from Seattle. He's got a couple of Pro Tour top 8s on his resume. And he's sitting at 7-3, facing down, Hall of Famer Ben Stark, also at 7-3.
Yeah.
And Ben, so here's the deal. Players, they're going to get underway here. I actually was out wandering the floor, and I heard a rumor. I heard a wild rumor that Ben Stark had drafted a mill deck. Now, this is not Ben Stark's normal MO. He drafts pretty straightforward, beatdown type decks. You know, he likes his value creatures and his straightforward board affecting spells a lot. He went a little off the track this time.
Yeah, this is not that.
This is the complete opposite. I actually bumped into him and I said, Ben, what's going on? I've heard some stories. And he says, take a look. He says, before you look, he's like, this is the least Ben S deck ever. Now, Ben S is his nickname, and he's right. This is a completely not Ben S style deck here. And we've got Mono Blue. That's right, Mono Blue Mill. He's got 2 Sphinx's Tutelage in. He's playing 2 Talent of the Telepath.
Wow, now that's
deck.
the rare that mills 7 cards, right?
Mm-hmm. And then you get to play a card, instant or sorcery for free from it. And if you've got Spellmaster, you can play 2 of them. And he's also playing, because he wasn't done yet, 2 Dreadwaters. So he is doing the mill thing in full effect. Now you see he's got some shields up here, and he still can't help himself from beating down at least every once in a while. And he's going to rumble for 2. Now, his opponent, Jesse Hampton, I got to tell, Ian, I got to tell the story here. So you and I were looking at this, and I was saying, this is what Ben Stark's up to. He's trying to mill out. So this is going to be very matchup dependent. And remember, we're in the finals of this draft. Both of these players are 2-0 in their draft pod here. And I said, if he plays against the red-white deck, he could be in some trouble. But if it's like black-green, then it could be lights out for his opponent, Jesse Hampton. And it turns out Jesse's on black-green.
Yeah.
This matchup does not look great for Jesse Hampton.
I agree. Jesse's got kind of a grindier, more attrition-based black-green deck. He's got 3 copies of Unholy Hunger. He's got some late-game bomb creatures like Sky Snare Spider and Majoring Responder, and those are not going to be effective against Ben's super defensive mono-blue deck. So let's take a look at the game state here. Looks like
Ben is off to a decent start here, actually using up his mana pretty repeatedly. Jesse Hampton still probably has no idea what Ben Stark's actual primary game plan is. He's going to use Unholy Hunger to take out a Whirler Rogue here.
And this is just the way Ben wants the game to play out. I mean, he's not under any pressure on the board. He locked down that Hangerbag Walker with Claustrophobia. He's got the 2 Thopters to block Orchard Spirit if he needs to. But it looks like he's actually just staying on the offensive. And rightfully so here. He's under very little pressure. And even though he's set up his deck to be a defensive milling type deck, he can still just win with damage. It's totally possible.
All right, Mage Ring Network is going to pick up a charge counter there. A card you don't see played too often in Limited.
Yeah, it's pretty good in Ben's deck, though. I mean, he's mono blue, so he has a lot of flexibility with being able to play colorless lands, and the additional mana late in the game is, it's not like he's going to get mana screwed.
Again, it's Jesse still just doesn't know yet what Ben's primary game plan is, as Ben has had kind of a good creature curve here as opposed to his normal plan.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no hint yet.
Jesse looks to be mostly out of gas. His one remaining card in hand is his Lone Plains that he's using to splash Sentinel of the Eternal Watch. So he's keeping that in his hand sort of as a surprise here. Ben Stark, in the meantime, is pretty well prepared for whatever Jesse's next play is. He's got a Claustrophobia in the bank, so to speak, and he's just holding on to that Dreadwaters to try to get more lands in play. Of course, there's no reason for him to fire it off just yet. No point in milling your opponent until you're actually ready to win the game via milling.
Yeah, he wants to wait as long as possible to fire off that Dreadwaters. He's got 6 lands on the battlefield. Dreadwaters, of course, mills your opponent for 6. They're going to put the top 6 cards of their library and put them in their graveyard, which on its own doesn't do anything, right? If you average it out over time, all you're doing is randomizing your opponent's library a little bit. It doesn't actually change anything until that last card goes away. So Ben is incentivized to wait as long as possible before firing off the Dreadwaters.
Oh, Read the Bone's actually one of the best things Jesse Hampton could draw here. Ben Stark has Guardians of Meletus and Claustrophobia to sort of take care of Jesse's next 2 creatures, but Read the Bones is actually one of the cards that can get him ahead 2 cards at once, or actually even more than 2 cards at once, because he can scry some lands to the bottom. But he does decide to keep his top 2, and we'll see if he can put together some threats to challenge Ben's board.
Looks like we're seeing a Sentinel of the Eternal Watch in hand for Hampton as well, and the Plains to cast it.
Yep, that is his 1 white splash.
All right, this is kind of interesting here. He's going to use Reeve Soul to kill his own Hangerback Walker. That's going to net him the 2 Thopters.
Oh, that's quite big. Quite a clever play there.
Yeah, that is going to force Ben Stark to think about maybe trading his Thopters for Jesse's. Again, Jesse doesn't know. This is kind of the crazy part about the match we've seen so far, that Ben Stark is actually a pure control deck looking to go as long game as possible and mill out the opponent. Jesse, from the draw he's seen, thinks that Ben has some type of artifact blue deck here, and is probably going to be pretty surprised when Ben, if he draws one of his tutelages or something along those lines, starts playing those.
I think it's pretty clear to Jesse at this point that Ben is not simply mana screwed, that he is probably mono blue or at least super heavy blue, and also that he's a controlling deck, given that the game has gone so long and he hasn't really put up much of a proactive presence.
I mean, he did. He went 2-drop. He played the Whirler Rogue.
He did, but a lot of turns have passed since then, and especially the presence of the Mage Rings here.
That is a big hint, isn't it?
The Mage Ring network. So we do see...
Yeah, Claustrophobia is going to hit the Spider here.
Yeah, one of the best targets for it.
Yeah, love that thing. And meantime, the Orchard Spirit will keep chipping away. And there it is, Sentinel of the Eternal Watch. It's been splashed for here by Hampton.
Okay, so now things are starting to turn here because that Sentinel can start tapping down the Guardians of Meletus and getting in some more pressure. If Ben doesn't put together something pretty soon, he could be dead in 2 turns.
Yeah, and he has drawn a lot of lands, which a few turns ago didn't look terrible because of the Dreadwaters plan, but now it looks very bad.
Yeah, and now under this amount of pressure, all of those milling cards are not what he wants to be drawing here. If he top decks another Dreadwaters or a Sphinx's Tutelage or something, it's too late for that.
Right, and of course that is the downside to cards like that. He's found Artificer's Epiphany here. He's going to draw 2, and he just gets to keep them both because he has Guardians of Meletus here. Does he have enough?
Declare an attack.
He's got 9 lands, make it 10.
Okay, actually,
is double Dreadwaters
Talent
enough?
of the Telepath looks like one of the cards he drew here. And this could be key because he does have Spell Mastery. I believe. Actually, no, he does not yet have Spell Mastery. He might have to cast his Dreadwaters first, then the Talent of the Telepath. But he can mill into one of Jesse Hampton's 2 remaining Unholy Hungers.
Oh, totally. So if he Dreadwaters first, it gets him Spell Mastery and puts extra cards in the graveyard?
Yep, and if he does hit an Unholy Hunger, he'll get Spell Mastery off of that as well and gain 2 life, which is going to be huge here.
I couldn't see it.
Talent you for 7.
Talent you for 7. 3, 4, 5. Oh, it's just off camera. There's...
In the wrong order.
Yeah, and Ben Stark says I did those in the wrong order,
Yes.
meaning what he means there is he actually flipped one of the cards he wanted to hit off of the Dreadwaters, but
Yes.
the talent
They're instant
actually has
sorceries,
to
right?
hit the card that you're going to cast. It can't choose from anything in the graveyard.
Yeah, and he was just saying that. I don't think he meant that was a mistake.
Right.
As
he
much as
he
just
was
he
more
wishes
joking
he
about the
would've-
luck
yeah.
of how things worked out.
Yeah. So of these 7,
Yeah, it's not the best deck.
You're gonna look.
So I think Ben Stark, realizing he's dead, there's nothing he can do, but just taking a careful look through Jesse Hampton's graveyard. Jesse remarks, yeah, it's not the best deck.
and Ben
So-
said,
so-
yeah, just take a quick look here.
Yeah.
But he does have to scoop him up. Jesse Hampton wins game 1 against the mono blue deck from Ben Stark.
Yeah, a little bit unfortunate for Ben there because it looked like he was off to a good start.
All right, we'll be back right after these messages.
Friday Night Magic has expanded to include all formats. Be ready for Standard, Commander, Legacy, or even Conspiracy drafts. Check out your local store for details and share your FNM stories by using the hashtag MTGFNM. Visit magic.wizards.com/FNM for more information. Put your game to the test at a Grand Prix. These open tournaments feature the best players in your region as well as top Magic pros from around the world. Upcoming Grand Prix events include Hong Kong, San Diego, London, Detroit, Santiago, and Prague. Visit magic.wizards.com/Grand Prix for a complete schedule.
And welcome back to the feature match area here at Pro Tour Magic Origins. Let's take a look at what our undefeated player Kentaro Yamamoto, the only one left in the field at 10-0, playing against Brian Gottlieb. Brian is 9-1 and looking to hand Kentaro his first loss of the tournament. It looks like he's a little behind the ball here. Yamamoto with 2 cards in hand. I believe he's got a Fiery Impulse here as well. You can see he's got that Akroan Jailer there with mana to activate too. All right, there goes Fiery Impulse to take down. Looks like just a Thopter here.
Yeah, it looks like he does not have Spell Mastery to take out the Thunderclap Wyvern.
But the 2 Knights of the Pilgrim's Road could be
Mighty Leap
either
saves the
of them
Thopter.
could it, but yeah, Mighty Leap is going to save it. Yamamoto still lining up an attack here. Brian is at 10 life. So we've got a Thopter that's a 2/2 thanks to the Thunderclap Wyvern. It's also +2/+2 thanks to the Mighty Leap, so it's a 4/4, but it has taken 2 damage. And in comes a good portion of the team here.
Yep, it's like a Gearcrafter, Amperin Tactician, and Cleric of the Forward Order.
Yep,
So
all
2/2,
jamming.
a 2/1, a 2/2, and a 3/3.
These are all trades at the least.
Looks like Brian Gottlieb considering, yeah,
Okay.
matching up his 3/2 with the 3/3, and 3/2 with the 2/2. Everything trades.
So,
Gottlieb falls to 8. But the board has been largely cleared away. Gottlieb with the Thunderclap Wyvern and the Thopter. Yamamoto still has an activation on that Akroan Jailer at the ready here as well, so that the Wyvern doesn't get to attack, or block for that matter.
Yeah, looks like a fairly even board here. Yamamoto perhaps a bit ahead because of the Jailer, and also ahead on life totals. But really, it's anyone's game, and it's going to come down to the next couple top decks, I believe.
Yeah, or if Brian has something sweet in his hand, he's got 3 cards.
It's true.
6 mana available.
Unfortunately for him, simply playing a big creature here isn't going to do much because then the Jailer will just switch its attention from, say, the Thunderclap Wyvern to whatever large creature he plays.
Combat.
Okay, he goes to combat, tap down the Wyvern. All right, let's head back over to the main table on Hampton versus Stark here. I got to see how this thing plays out. I just haven't seen a mono blue deck like this in the format.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious to see how it actually ends up playing out. Even with Stark falling woefully behind that game, he actually was still pretty close. You know, he got him down to 5 cards, I'd say.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you have to remember, in Limited, you're playing with 40-card decks. It doesn't take that much to mill an opponent out. You know, sometimes just 2 Dreadwaters or a Talented Telepath and a Dreadwater can be enough if the game goes a little bit long.
This one's starting the same as last time.
Yeah, it's actually an almost identical start, although I'm noting Jesse Hampton is lacking green mana. He has just 3 swamps here, although I see a forest in his hand.
Yeah, he's
as
got
well.
a forest, so he's okay.
So feigning a little bit of color screw, but should turn
And
out
here's
fine.
that Whirler Rogue. So this is actually looking a lot like the first game.
Mm-hmm.
And Ben finds himself ahead on board.
We were joking about that Malakir Coldblade, how it wouldn't be very effective against Ben Stark's deck, but Whirler Rogue is actually one of the cards that it is pretty effective against just because it's producing lots of little creatures.
It's true. Now, Ben does have a pair of Separatist Void Mage in his list, as well as an Anchor to the Aether. So if the Malakir Coldblade were to get a little out of hand, Ben does have a few ways in his deck to reset it at least.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Take your time.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty impressed how well set up Ben Stark's deck is to supporting his mill plan. He's got Displacement Wave, a bunch of bounce spells, a bunch of defensive creatures like Separatist Void Mage and Guardians of Meletus, 2 copies of Send to Sleep, which he should have no problem hitting Spell Mastery for.
All right,
Looks
so
like-
Whirler Rogue down.
Wild Instincts taking out the Whirler Rogue and pumping up the Malakir Coldblade.
Ben's going to attack for 2 in the air with the 2 Thopters, and he's got a Water Courser as a follow-up play here as well.
Yeah,
Still
another
no
nice
Sphinx's
defensive creature.
Tutelages in sight yet for Ben Stark. He does have 2 of those in his list.
Yeah, and those are cards I think he would actually rather see early in the game, provided he has enough other cards to defend himself. The earlier he can get down the tutelage, the faster he's going to start the milling process.
All right, so here's Reeve Soul to take down Water Courser.
And a Shaman in the pack.
Yeah, Shaman of the Pack, just for 1, but still. So Ben has both copies of Talented the Telepath in his hand here,
And a Dreadwaters.
and a Dreadwaters and a
So-
Bone Dash.
Yeah, he may actually just start firing those off and going for kind of a turbo mill plan. He's got a couple Thopters to jump block with.
I have to go watch that video of you tilting off for like 10 minutes.
I was like 19.
I know. I need to go watch it again.
So I guess deciding whether he wants to leave up the
We've
Bone
been
to
seasoned
Ash
a little
here,
since then.
or go
I like
for
the chatter here, Ian.
Yeah.
That was like before poker and everything too.
It was Hampton said that he was watching a video of Ben getting tilted, and Ben said, "I was 19." He said, "I've seasoned a little since then." Of course, Ben's in the Hall of Fame now. He's come a long way. Started playing on the Pro Tour when he was 15.
Talented Telepath.
All right, Talented Telepath
Seven,
it
and then
is.
Play 1 instant or sorcery that you know.
So no spell mastery just yet. So he'll get to play 1 instant or
Maybe I
sorcery.
boarded them all out. Oh, I guess
He
not.
So he bricked. He saw none, and Jesse postulates maybe I boarded them all out, even though he's already played 2 in this game.
And has 2 more in his hand. Might of the Masses and Unholy Hunger.
Yeah, these mill do add up, but Ben's going to have a way to go here. Like if you think about it, like Jesse kept his opening hand, so he had 33 cards in his library to start. Ben just milled 7. He's got another 7 that he can mill here. That's 14. He'll probably do Dreadwaters for at least 7, so that's 21. Plus, we're on turn 6, so that's 27 of the 33 from draw steps and mill from Ben Stark against Jesse. And he's going to get a quick count here to see where he's at right now.
Yeah.
But it does feel like he's going to need one more big mill spell, a tutelage, or just some time. You know, he's going to need a 4 or 5 turn stretch where he's got the board stable and Jesse isn't able to do anything if he's going to put together a mill victory here.
Right.
All right, here goes Talon of Telepath number 2. He found a Read the Bones.
Okay, this could be really exciting. So can't quite see what all the rest of the cards are, but
Help you. Can I even read? 3, 5. I guess I can read.
He's trying to decide if he can read the bones given the board state here. And he's going to read the bones.
Do you have to choose both of them before you cast it?
I can only cast one. It's if I
Oh,
have
spell
Spellmaster.
mastery. Okay. My fault.
Ben's going to need to find some action here with this Read the Bones because this is putting him down to 11.
Okay.
looks like you have to one island and
He drew an island.
drew another island.
This is going to be really close, Ian.
Combat.
Sure. No blocks.
Take 8.
Okay. Great.
He's down to 3. That's 2 lethal threats now for Jesse Hampton on the board. Ben's going to have to either mill him out on his turn, or he's going to have to find something like a Separatist Void Mage to stabilize the board for him.
Yep. And we don't quite have the count of the library here, but I don't believe the Dreadwaters that he has is enough to finish the job.
6,
I think we'll need to see him
Yeah,
get
we'll
something
listen
like
to him. 12 cards. Yeah, he still needs one more length, right? It's just not quite enough.
right. Looks like he may have picked up Send to Sleep and Displacement Wave between his
Wow.
last draw step and the Read the Bones. So
Those are both pretty great. The Send to Sleep will buy him 2 turns here.
yep. Looks like his plan here is to tap the 2 non-claustrophobia creatures with Send to Sleep. And then after they untap, finally, he can Displacement Wave. Or rather, the turn when they would untap.
Okay, so tap these down. He does have Spell Mastery, but Ben takes 1 here. Oh, this is so close. I think that Jesse Unholy Hungered his Hangerback Walker to turn it into a 1/1 flyer on end step there. He did just get in with it.
This is going to be very close here.
Don't see how else it could have died there.
So if we have the numbers correct, Jesse would have 11 cards left in his library. Ben has 7 lands.
Ooh, here's a Guardian Automaton.
Okay.
These stay tapped.
Yep.
Oh, man, this is so close.
Night snare you.
Night Snare you.
Wow.
Choose a mode.
No. The target opponent reveals their hand. You
Oh, you do it after.
And then
Okay.
you,
I
or if I
apologize.
don't, you discard 2.
Sure, I apologize.
Wow. We have not seen a Night Snare yet on the feature match, and I actually haven't seen one resolved yet, period. But Jesse picking his weapon of choice post board to try to pick away the weapons from Ben Stark. You can see what Night Snare does on the right-hand side of your screen there.
It's actually quite an effective sideboard card against Ben's strategy.
So he can take Displacement Wave away, or he could even just take the Dreadwaters. He's getting something.
How many cards do I have?
You have 10.
You have 8 lands?
I have 7 lands.
7 lands?
So it's actually somewhat of a decision here because the Dreadwaters isn't lethal next turn, so he can take the Displacement Wave, relying on the fact that Ben would need to top deck something to not die the following turn.
But And he would need something pretty significant.
One.
Or
He took the
he
Dreadwaters.
took the Dreadwaters, yeah, which is, I think, a little bit of a safer play because it means Ben actually needs another win condition now to close out the game.
Which could theoretically buy him a lot of time.
Right.
So King of the Hill table, of course, that's Kentaro Yamamoto at 10-0. He just fell in the first game. The one that we checked in on, it just ended. Brian Gottlieb wins it. He's up a game over Kentaro. And here's an attack now with the automaton, and he's going to now have to displacement wave. Can he cast the automaton post displacement wave here, Ian?
He could, or he could leave up Bone to Ash, which I actually like better here, and I think is going to be his plan, because he knows he can Bone to Ash one of the creatures on the way back down.
Yeah, that makes a lot
So
of
the
sense.
Thopter goes away completely, because it's a token.
Yeah, that worked really well for Ben, because otherwise he was going to put that hangerback walker in hand for Hampton.
Right.
The fact that Hampton killed it.
And now Ben Stark is actually able to use the Mage Ring network to get up to 4 mana to cast Bone to Ash on one of the creatures that Jesse will play this turn, and the other can be blocked by the Guardian Automaton. So Ben is not out of this game just yet. It looks like he will be able to defend himself.
And he
another
was
round.
also able to displacement wave for 3 there. So his automaton actually never got returned, because Jesse didn't have anything above 3.
So Orchard Spirit, I think, is the creature that Ben wants to Bone to Ash here, because it has sort of pseudo flying. Right?
If Ben's at 1, he has to Bone to Ash the elf, right?
Oh, the Shaman of the
The
Pack.
Shaman of the Pack just kills him.
But he doesn't. Jesse Hampton is not representing another forest just yet. He may have one in his hand that he hasn't played yet.
I see. So this kills him just as well.
Yeah.
One short.
Okay, and he decides not to
Yeah,
Bone
he
to
plays
Ash
better
there.
than I did. You actually have 9, right?
Yep. You drew Dreadwaters?
Yeah.
Oh, he drew Deadwaters.
Yeah.
He's going to get him to 0 cards in his library after his draw step, and then Jesse's going to kill him.
Which is really interesting there, because had he cast Bone to Ash, he may have also been able to top deck a 9th land at this same turn.
Yeah.
It's probably better. Because then you have to keep the Dreadwaters, hope to draw Dreadwaters.
Wow. That
Yeah.
was so close.
Somewhat unclear to me whether Ben realized the Shaman couldn't come down that same turn, or was playing around another forest.
Because it could have just been
Jesse's
forest
hand.
play it, you're dead.
Yes, it definitely could have been. So actually a really interesting final turn there.
It was super interesting, and Ben decided that he was going to play around that, but I think he regretted it. I heard him tell Jesse, you played this better than I did. All right, so it looks like we've only got one more match left, and it is our King of the Hill, and it is our undefeated player. Only one left in the field. That's Kentaro Yamamoto of Japan. He's playing against Brian Gottlieb. Brian's up a game here. We checked in on this a while ago. This is in between game 1 and 2. From Jesse Hampton to Ben Stark, and they were in the middle of that game, and it was kind of unclear where it was going. Eventually, and it did take a while, it went Brian Gottlieb's way. And now we're checking in here in the early stages of game 2. Brian Gottlieb has a will breaker, but he didn't really have many ways to actually steal creatures.
So nice first couple turns for Kentaro Yamamoto. Interestingly there, he did not attack with his own Cleric of the forward order into Brian Gottlieb's. So perhaps telling you something about... okay. That's probably the explanation there, this Amprint Tactician.
Yeah, he wanted to try to get value from the Tactician here.
Yeah, watching these early turns and whether players try to trade off creatures or try to keep their own creatures alive can tell you a lot about their hand or the way that they want their deck to play out.
Oh, geez. How about another Amprint
And
Tactician?
this is certainly the way Kentaro Yamamoto wants his deck to play out.
All right, looks like we're going to see a Celestial Flare here from Gottlieb to stem the bleeding a little bit. Basically, Yamamoto has to decide if he'd like to draw a card along with Gottlieb or not. He is going to. No clean blocks here for Brian Gottlieb. And he's going to take 7 damage. So down to 11 for Gottlieb as Yamamoto passes a turn back. I see that there is It's like 6 cards in hand here for Gottlieb, including the Willbreaker. He's also got Thunderclap Wyvern, though Yamamoto has seen that now. Is less likely to want to attack into it. Also, Willbreaker, when you don't have any way to target your opponent's stuff, is a lot worse. It's a 2/3 for 5, which is, well, you know, we talk about the vanilla test on the podcast, and that does not pass.
Mm-hmm. There is some element, though, of the threat of it, sort of being a
When Brian
lightning
gets to
rod for
untap.
removal spells. Yeah.
Yeah, that is true, because you can do that at instant speed, and that really can mess up combat. Take away an attacker, changes everything. But Gottlieb's tapped out here, so Yamamoto attacks with all 3 of his creatures. Gottlieb actually looking for a trade here, not blocking with the Willbreaker. I think he knows that if this game is going to turn around for him, he's going to need to draw a few ways to target, and that Willbreaker is going to have to stick around as well.
Totally agree. Unfortunately for him, Yamamoto with a pretty stacked hand.
Fiery Impulse and Pia and Kiran Nalar. Wow.
Yeah, one of actually 2 copies of Pia and Kiran Nalar that he has in his deck. We got to see his draft earlier.
And that's going to do it. Kentaro Yamamoto is going to even things up in short order here. Much, much quicker than the first game. And we are going to get an exciting Game 3 conclusion between these 2 players. Who do you like in the matchup, Ian?
Well, I got to see Yamamoto's draft earlier, and his deck is quite good. I think I gave it a B+ at the time after the fact, but after seeing how his deck played out that time, I may have been undervaluing the Amprint Tacticians. It looks like they are really, really effective in this deck. So based on what I've seen so far, I'm going to go with Yamamoto.
Yeah, it's funny, you know, Amprint Tactician is a card. I think that normally if you saw 2 of them in a list, it would lower the grade a little bit. Not that the card's terrible or anything, but it's not great.
I think it's quite solid. It just has to be in the right deck. And it looks like, you know, at least with his draw that game, if that's indicative of the way his deck's normally going to play out, then he does have the right sort of the rest of the shell for those to support.
The rest of the shell being creatures?
Well,
I mean, he played
specifically
cleric.
early drop aggressive creatures, right? You know, he does have
I mean,
his
he didn't
share
have that many there.
He does have his share of grizzly bears and
Yeah,
rune servitors
that's all he
and things
had.
like that.
Look at
but
that board.
That's almost exactly what you want. I mean,
Yeah,
of course,
that's what I'm saying.
He'd rather Topin Freeblade
Yeah.
than Cleric of the Forward Order or Rune Servitor, but at some point, it's just about filling out your curve and
Yes.
not about like actually how efficient the individual creatures are.
Yeah, I mean, he's making that Amprint Tactician look great.
Yeah.
His curve was a Crowan Jailer, Cleric of the Forward Order, and Rune Servitor.
Right. And
Just 3 of the most run-of-the-mill.
we were talking the other day about a Crow and Jailer. I know you're not a super big fan of it.
I
but
dislike it strongly.
one of the things that came up is like, what kind of decks would you actually want a Crow and Jailer
Yeah.
in? And I posited that this is the kind of deck I actually want, the deck where I value it as a 1-mana 1/1.
Yes.
Sort of as its primary-ish attributes there, and that like the activated ability is more of if I flood out in the late game or the late game happens to go long, which is not the primary game plan,
Right.
then it still holds some value there.
And this looks like that type of deck exactly.
Yeah.
Now, Gottlieb looks like his deck is trying to use Thunderclap Wyvern and to beat down in the air. The problem, of course, is that it does set him back a little slower. Your flyers are going to cost more mana on average than your non-flyers, and that means that you are going to find yourself behind against an aggressive deck like Yamamoto sometimes.
Yeah, it's a great point. Flyers tend not to make great blockers for that reason. You're kind of paying a premium for the evasion, and if you're not attacking, the evasion isn't worth nearly as much.
Yeah, he's got 1 Thunderclap Wyvern in his deck, 3 Cleric of the Forward Order, 2 Knight of the Pilgrim's Road. So Brian Gottlieb can certainly get his beatdown on. He's even got Screeching Scob, as you can see here on the battlefield. And interestingly, he's got 2 copies of Send to Sleep in his main deck here.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, which are good tempo play if you do have a Flying Air Force or something big on the ground to punch through the Knight of the Pilgrim's Roads, whatever. But also it works well with Willbreaker.
Oh, sure. Great point.
Ooh, Disciple of the Ring as well, which I can see on the list in front of me, as well as in his hand. Disciple of the Ring is a mythic, and it's a nice one. We'll bring up a graphic of that when he gets it on the battlefield for you guys here, but it's a complicated card. It's got a whole lot going on with it. All of it good.
Yes.
That one actually saw a little constructed play yesterday here at the PT.
Oh, no kidding.
Not a lot, but I think a couple people were running a couple of them.
Very cool.
All right, is this going to be a Knight of the Pilgrim's Road here for Gottlieb? What does he have? No,
Sigiled Aven,
even
actually.
better. He's got the Stalwart Aven.
A Stalwart Aven, sorry.
Okay, War Oracle is a nice turn 4 play. This is where you don't want to see, if you're Yamamoto, you don't want to be playing your Amperin Tactician into no board here, but the War Oracle changes things considerably from Brian Gottlieb's standpoint.
Yeah, quite a hard card to race.
Indeed. Wow, this is a pretty good hand here for Gottlieb. He's an island short of Disciple of the Ring, but otherwise Charging Griffin, Enshrouded Mist, Disperse. He's got pressure. He's got ways to interact. He's got lands. It's hard to ask for much more than this if you're in Gottlieb's seat.
Yeah, he's going to want to craft a game plan where he can deal with that War Oracle before it gains too much life. So it'll be interesting to see how he tries to use this Enshrouding Mist.
He's going to go Griffin and then maybe try to trade with Enshrouding Mist. It's somewhat risky.
I doubt he's going to offer the 2-for-1 there, especially into Kentaro Yamamoto's open mana.
Yeah, that's true, especially given that Fiery Impulse would completely break it up. So you think he's just going to take a hit from the Oracle, try to leverage Disperse later?
Yeah, I do think so.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's one of the reasons why Disperse, I think, players value it higher in this format than they would in many others, is because of how it resets renowned creatures.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if your opponent maybe had to use a combat trick or something else to get them through in the first place. Just resetting it can be backbreaking. So I suspect we'll see War Oracle come in here. Yamamoto probably aware that Enshrouding Mists is something Brian Gottlieb could have.
Yeah, I think he would welcome it in this situation.
Oh, he certainly would with the Fiery Impulse in his hand. It's possible he puts out the Grasp with a Hieromancer first just to get an extra point of damage. He's clearly not worried about Brian Gottlieb actually blocking. But knows that he wants to put the Grasp on the War Oracle at some point, and this will just give him
Oh, this is going to untap the Stalwart Aven here.
And that's kind of foolish of me. I wasn't even thinking about Enshrouding Mists on the Aven with the +1/+1 counter, of course.
Yeah, it doesn't actually kill the War Oracle here, though. It just fogs it for the turn.
Right.
I don't actually know how great that is. I mean, it does prevent, the 4 damage from hitting as the Charging Griffin falls to the Fiery Impulse post-combat.
Yeah.
I mean, it's decent, right? Like, it's hard to say that was bad, but,
Yeah,
he didn't get a card out of it.
I do feel like I'm missing something, though, because it seemed like all he accomplished with that was just preventing the 4 damage and the +1/+1 counter on the War Oracle, but he has a Disperse in his hand, so he doesn't really care that much about the War Oracle actually
I don't
being
know.
renowned.
It didn't seem that awesome.
So I'll chalk it up to, he's got a game plan that I'm not seeing here.
Right. Disciple of the Ring, though, has hit the battlefield. So let's take a look at what this thing does. It's a 3/4 for 5, decent. And you can pay 1, exile an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard, and you can choose one of those 4 things to do. You can just do it as many times as you can pay and, satisfy the cost. So
Yeah.
there's 2 spells in the yard right now. That could be one thing. Maybe he just wanted to have another spell in the yard. I don't know. But Disciple of the Ring is active. He's got the 1 mana left over.
And if you haven't played against this card, it is really hard to beat when there's a graveyard stack full of instants and sorceries.
Yeah.
It just feels like it can do everything.
Yeah, I'm assuming he's just going to tap down the War Oracle when he goes to attacks here. Heavy Infantry is going to hit the battlefield and attempt to tap down Disciple of the Ring, though don't think that Brian cares that much about that. Oh, he's going to let him attack. No, he's not going to let him attack. All right, that's what I thought was going to happen, and it did. He tapped down the War Oracle. So far, Gottlieb has managed to not let it actually hit for any lifelink at all, and he's got Kentaro down to 9 here.
Mm-hmm.
So this is more of Gottlieb's plan unfolding.
Oh, I see. And that makes a lot more sense now with the context of the enshrouding mists also preventing the damage, so hence preventing the life gain for Yamamoto.
Mm-hmm.
So Gottlieb may be planning things out in such a way that he's going to race in the air.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he's doing here. He's going to disperse the 3-4 heavy infantry here, and he can pump up his Disciple of the Ring by 2 here. That's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's lethal.
Excellent.
Wow, sweet play from Gottlieb.
Very
and
well
Gottlieb
crafted.
picks up the match. You could see that he had that line figured out with the Disciple, and he put the whole thing together to end the game in short order. He could have played for a slightly longer game there as well, but he saw the line and got it. That was fantastic stuff.
Really impressive.
And you know what? He just handed Kentaro Yamamoto his first loss of the tournament, Ian.
Wow.
You can see that we're going to actually start to set up for an interview here. A quick word with Brian Gottlieb. He's the only one who's actually been able to take down Kentaro Yamamoto on the weekend. What do you think about that?
I mean, really impressive display there. I love how he crafted those last several turns there, and definitely I even felt a step behind as he was putting that all together, so I'm sure probably threw Kentaro Yamamoto for a loop as well. But still, Yamamoto probably feeling pretty good here at, 10-1 now, and I'm not sure if he's thinking about anything Player of the Year related, but he's certainly thinking about winning this tournament.
Well, I can tell you that he is in the running, but it's not easy for him to get to Player of the Year. He's got a lot of work to do to actually get to that point, like winning-ish. But he is making a run for Platinum if he gets top 8. So he is certainly in the running for these longer-term, discussions here.
Yeah, a lot on the line for him.
And he's still in it,
exciting.
right? I mean, at 10-1, he's ready to go.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
All right, well, why don't we send it down to the feature match area where Tim Willoughby is with Brian Gottlieb.
I'm Tim Willoughby, down here in the feature match area with Brian Gottlieb. Now, Brian, you've been in the feature match area a fair amount, but now you're going to be in the feature match area quite a bit more because you are King of the Hill. You're the first person to take a match off Kentaro Yamamoto, and it looked like your deck was sweet.
I really wasn't that thrilled with my deck after I drafted it, but it came together, and I think I played well, particularly the third game. The first game, I may have given him a window to get back into it, but I was happy with my play in the third game, and we got the result we wanted. So,
yeah, that third game was really interesting to watch because the Disciple obviously huge in there. How much were those last few turns kind of scripted out for you? Were you really playing for the ability on the big mythic rather?
Yeah, they were very much scripted. I had an end game in mind, and it worked out favorably. I knew I was in trouble if he drew a copy of, I don't know card names, Chandra's Parents. Yes. So if he had drawn that, I would have had to modify my plan, but barring that card, I felt pretty comfortable with my plan. So.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you realize he actually had 2 copies of Pia and Kiran Nallar in that deck, a very, very powerful draft deck from him. But if you're looking for a great place to win a draft, it's the second draft at the Pro Tour. What's your record now?
I'm now 10-1.
A very exciting place to be. There's no one with a better record in the room. Congratulations, Brian Gottlieb. And I'm going to hand things back to the news desk now as we're about to go back into the standard rounds at Pro Tour Magic Origins.
Thanks very much to Tim Willoughby there, and Brian Gottlieb, congratulations. He's done something that no one else has managed to do so far, take match points away from Kentaro Yamamoto. So, why don't we take a look at our 2 top tables, because remember, in draft, you only get to play within your pod, maximum 7 possible opponents spread across 3 rounds. And what that means is a ton of stuff happens to the scoreboards, because someone goes 3-0, someone goes 0-3. Why don't we take a look at our first featured pod then. So you're going to see table 1 here. This is Kentaro Yamamoto, Larson, Gottlieb, Sigrist, Fujimoto, Hone, Simono, and Scott Lipp. So work our way up. Scott Lipp came in at 7-1, and those 7 wins are where he leaves. He will be very happy to get back to constructed a deck that he did beautifully with yesterday and needs to again, because he is the player from Pod 1 with 4 losses. Timothée Simoneau lost in that last round. That's good news for Ralph Levy fans. Simoneau kind of getting into the discussion for the France World Magic Cup race. Rich Hone, 8-0 overnight. Wow. reversal. 8-3 now as a result of draft. And Hone, one of the great limited players of all time, but did not go well for him this morning. But nonetheless, 3 losses. That's the joy of the overnight leaders. You have losses to give. He is still very much in contention for top 8. The 9 and 2s, and this is where it all kind of clusters up. Takahiro Fujimoto at 9-2, Mike Sigrist at 9 and 2. And of course, we're waiting just to update the result there. We now know that Brian Gottlieb is 10 and 1, and Kentaro Yamamoto has fallen to 10 and 1, and Joe Larson 9 and 2. So just that win there, Brian Gottlieb taking you to 2 players at 10 and 1, means that the field is just slightly compressed rather than Kentaro Yamamoto being only 1 win and a draw away from the top 8. They've still got a little bit of work to do as we head into the afternoon. Let's take a look at our second draft pod then, and this is table 2. So this was players 9 through 16 as we came into the morning. And you see down at the bottom there, Wilson Mock 7 and 4. There were a couple of 6 and 2s, or indeed a 6-2 and a 6-1-1. In this pod, so some slightly strange numbers. Wilson Mock at 7 and 4, Makahito Mahara, Hall of Famer of course, and Pro Tour champion, he is at 7, 3 and 1, so no more losses to give for him. If he ran the table in constructed, he would get to 12, 3, 1. That would very likely be enough for top 8. Max McVitie came in at 7 and 1. He's gone 1 and 2 on the morning. Shahar Shenhar came in at 6-2 and has gone 2 and 1 on the morning, the double world champion. And then 4-way split, 9 and 2, 9 and 2, 9 and 2, 9 and 2. 4 of the 5 Americans come out of the second draft pod at 9 and 2. Loss for Sam Black in that last round puts him back to 9 and 2. And Pat Cox trying to put a run together for gold at 9-2. Durzo and Neil round out our top 2 pods. So what does that mean for the overall leaderboard at lunchtime here on day 2 in Vancouver? Let's take a look at where things stand. Gottlieb and Yamamoto, there we are, their results in the system now. 9 and 2s all the way down the left-hand side. Sigrist, huge story developing here. He's the top of the X and 2s. He is in the hunt for Player of the Year if he can make it into the top 8. Joe Larson 9-2, Sven Moshevitz Hall of Famer. Now I have a feeling that means he went 6-0 in draft. Well, let's see how he does in constructed back again. Black, you see there, Cox, Durzo and Neil from pod 2. Yuki Matsumoto, another Japanese player on the right there. Shahar Shenhar picking out. You've seen Nathan Holiday in action. And well done to Thomas Ashton, back via a Magic Online Pro Tour qualifier win. This is his 12th Pro Tour start, and he is right in the thick of things. So is Hone, even though he's had a difficult morning in Limited. All right, so that puts a bow on our limited coverage here at Pro Tour Magic Origins. Our players are on lunch, and in a little while we will be delving into Standard. I've got the Hall of Famer Randy Buehler beside me. But before we do that, it's time to just take a little flight down to Seattle to our friends at Wizards of the Coast. We've been going inside R&D with the Origins Planeswalkers, and waiting patiently for us this Saturday lunchtime is Nissa.